Let's have a look at it. Mr. Weber's going to run the loser, we hope. These people that can't get the plane. He'll stay out there. He'll find somebody to run. And we're off the running. Come on. Little problem. Little problem there. Let's up the side. Out there off. 5 laps around the curve. Turns. Make that turn as short as you can, lose as little time. See the driver shift the weight up in front of there, try to make a good tight turn as best they can. Do a little bouncing, rocking and rolling. There we go. Get that thing turned around and go and go. All right, just keep looking on the left. Some of them water. There we go, and hang loose. Yeah. Those ducks are smart, they got on the other side of the river. All right, the lead boat's down to the buoy, making the turn. And the gray boat in the lead, massive. Line down a little body weight. Little tighter turn. Now we're going. That way you take up a little time to get that corner turn. These boats are what we call the river rat boats. They've undergone an evolution of the old homemade flat bottom boat. And these were developed by several people. Mr. Blackie had quite a bit to do with it back in the, 40s, 50s, somewhere back in there, early 60s, as well as several other folks. So they made a fishing boat that go a little faster, contest their fellow fishermen a little bit, have a little fun. Some of them put a little bit bigger motors on them, a little bit better paint jobs. Okay, that's just allowed. Make a nice close turn. Just shift there to wait. Back again. Turn around and back down. We have a winner. Now, we're about to have one more lap. All right. Now we've got another heat. Go back in. Boom! And they're off to a good start. 5 laps. In the second heat of the 25 horsepower closed course race. Brake swings way out wide, almost under the trees. And move on out on the straightaway down there. Going over the turn. Around the bush. back this way. We can put some distance between Mr. Hector, because Mr. Hector does now going in the turn, and Brinks is running almost under the bridge. Raymond heading toward the building. Brinks comes under the shadow of the bridge. See, he can't make a little better turn than he did last time. He can do better than that. I know he can. You like that water, buddy?
Thank y'all a lot.
Yeah. Hey, you want back in the water?
3 man, 4 man.
Wait him out there and let him get wet. Good.
Looks like we got a pretty close finish here. 1, 2, 3. All right. Honey Silver holding back. What's that? When they go under the rope, they have completed 14 miles. And you have your winner in the blue bowl. Here comes the second place boat downstream, that's French. Was the blue boat ahead or not? White boat? By how many inches? 3 or 4 inches. About a foot. Okay. Close race. Close race for 4th and 5th.
Y'all the winner?
Big boat gaining on here. Richard had him there for a while. Boat's gonna hold up. Jimmy Matheson by about a boat.
All right, that was...
Oh, good place to stop.
Came out of the water like that.
Has everybody got a life jacket on?
I don't...
Marathon. Hope everybody knows where all the floating marks are in the sandbar. Downward 57 miles, up River 1, back here over 6. All right, gentlemen, come on up a little bit, come on up, come on up. Big folks trying to find a hole to go by. They'll be racing 7 miles down the river, turn around, come up 7, go up 1 mile, turn around, that'll be a total of 16 miles. Victor's running a 40-year-old I hear some more coming downhill again. All right, y'all have fun. Come back to see us. If you can't come to see us, send money, okay? All in on the clock.
elegant, sculpted doorways on both north and south sides. One altar will be here and another at the crossing for Holy Day services. Your nave will easily hold the thousands who will come on such occasions. And what they will see is a building of unmatched beauty, a single, unified expression of God's hand in nature.
I'm sure the Blessed Virgin will be pleased and impressed.
The nave and choir will rise nearly twice as high as those of the old cathedral, with a vaulted ceiling of stone, not wood.
That should lessen the danger of fire.
This new building style allows the walls to contain vast expanses of glass, letting in the light of divine essence. Your Grace finds so inspiring.
But twice the height of the old cathedral? Heavy stone ceilings? Walls of glass? Master Guillaume, it cannot possibly stand.
Oh, it will stand. And as we build it, you will see how.
This new style of building must truly be inspired by God.
As are all things, Pierre.
As soon as Master Guillaume placed his final stake, the workers began digging the foundation. On April the 14th, 1216, His Grace blessed the first stone.
The foundation is most critical. It must be both strong and even to support such great weight. It goes down 25 feet into the ground. You see there? The mason is carefully checking each layer of stones with his plumb line. Any mistake in leveling, and the entire structure could collapse.
Heaven forfend!
We are fortunate in having a quarry close by, so we can float the stones downriver on barges to the town docks.
I am impressed with your thorough organization.
His Grace always says that God is in the details.
Thank you, Pierre.
I only hope the supply of stone holds out.
Our cathedral is being built to honor the Virgin and house the sacred veil, to whose miraculous powers I can personally attest. So His Grace decided that a public display of the relic throughout the countryside would encourage the generosity of all toward the building fund. One who needs no such prodding is the merchant, Thibault Loriche. As a young man, he journeyed to Italy to ply his skills as a weaver and returned as a trader of fine Italian cloth.
As always, Merchant Thibault, your contribution is most welcome. I am certain Our Lady will smile upon you.
She always has. It is only fitting that I show her thanks for my successes.
So much progress has been seen these past several years. But Master Guillaume's design is still a mystery to me. It seems he's building no walls at all. It will be inspiring to worship in such an atmosphere. I only wonder what will keep it all from crashing down upon our heads. But Bishop Philippe has seen the new building style in Paris and has faith in Master Guillaume. Ingenious.
God will reward your most noble work.
But will he also find me enough stone? I've told the Dean supplies in the quarry are waning already.
God always provides.
Thank you, Pierre.
Every season brings new wonders. I am now Father Pierre. Master Guillaume throws himself into the completion of the choir with fervor incredible to behold. Who would have expected such progress in less than 20 years? With the roof and vaulting finished, His Grace has established July the 2nd, 1233, the feast day of the Visitation of the Blessed Virgin, for the dedication of the choir. The entire town is at a pitch of excitement. As it now happens, the celebration will not be one of unbridled joy. As the plans were underway, it pleased God to call back to His mercy His faithful servant Philippe. With his dying breath, His Grace charged us to move forward, but our grief knows no bounds. Our new bishop, Gervais, is from a wealthy and prominent family. We hope he will prove as great an inspiration as Philippe. With neighboring bishops and the Archbishop of Reims, he presided over the dedication of the choir. We hope the cathedral will help guide people along the one true path to God. Bishop Philippe was entombed among the past bishops and the sacred remains of Saint Etienne de Beaulieu. And it is only fitting. Were it not for his grace, this cathedral, now nearly half complete, would still be no more than a dream.
We're in the Royal Abbey Church of Saint-Denis, just a few miles from the center of Paris. This is the royal burial place of French kings and one of the most important religious centers in all of France. This is also where the Gothic style began. Saint-Denis was the passion of its greatest abbot, Suger, who was born in 1081 and became one of the most influential clerics and statesmen of his time. It was his dream to build a church where worshippers could actually feel the presence of God. And to Suger, God's presence meant light. Here in the choir of Saint-Denis, Suger brought God's light into the church. Suger didn't invent the stained glass window. He simply used it on a scale previously unknown. This entire area is virtually enclosed by a beautiful curtain of glass. The choir, the ambulatory passage which allowed movement around the choir, these elegant radiating chapels are all part of Suger's vision. And this unity of design and structure became the essence of Gothic architecture. Compare Saint-Denis to the Romanesque churches of the time. We see heavy, castle-like structures with small windows and massive walls. Next to these buildings, Suger's church, with its delicate, light, glass-filled walls, must have seemed a miracle. For as Pierre asked, how could such a building be supported by walls of glass? Couldn't. What traditionally supports a roof and ceiling are walls. In the earliest churches, these walls gradually evolved into a series of arches and load-bearing columns called piers. As wooden ceilings were replaced by more permanent, fireproof, and significantly heavier stone ceilings called vaults, the walls had to be thicker to support the increased weight and resist the outward thrust. The windows remained quite small. In later buildings, the downward weight and outward thrust of the vaulting was concentrated at a number of specific points. By making the arches wider and the piers heavier, more of the wall space could be opened up for windows. As church buildings grew taller and closer to the heavens, the weight of the vaulting inside and the force of the wind outside increased. At some point, the piers would have become so huge that the space between them would have become virtually unusable. So, to reduce the size of the main piers and to effectively resist the force of the wind, additional support placed out of the interior space was needed. The result was a row of buttresses, connected to the high walls by stone arms, called flying buttresses. We're up among the flying buttresses at Amiens, one of the tallest cathedrals in the world. The thrust of the interior vaulting pushes against the wall high above each of the main piers. It then passes through the wall, travels across the flying buttress, and is channeled through the main buttress into the foundations below. The result of this is a wide, unobstructed aisle below me and this magnificent wall of glass behind me. Initially, Gothic builders weren't entirely sure about their new breakthrough. Chartres, one of the first of the giant cathedrals, was begun in 1194. It has massive buttresses, each weighing over 2 million pounds. The flying buttresses, on the other hand, are rather timid. The builders of Chartres were taking no chances. At Bourges, built almost as early as Chartres, we see long, delicate flying buttresses that much more gracefully support a building of comparable size. Far less light is blocked by structure. Each buttress weighs only a third as much as those at Chartres, an important factor not only in the appearance of the building, but also in its cost. Moving stone from great distances, hauling it to the site, and then lifting it to these extraordinary heights meant that economy in design was essential. It was possible, however, to to take that economy a little too far. In 1284, there was a collapse at the just completed cathedral at Beauvais, after the nave had reached a height of 150 feet. The transept and choir are all that remain. But for the most part, the medieval builder was extremely careful and knowledgeable. He used his own building as a model, checking each part as it was finished. An example of the builder's knowledge is to be found in the use of ornate stone pinnacles like these here at Amiens. For centuries, people thought they were merely decorative, but as it turns out, their weight helps the buttresses to do their jobs more effectively. The cathedral was meant to be a physical representation of the divine order of things, a microcosm of a universe fashioned by God, the ultimate master builder. Nowhere is this better seen than in the perfect proportions of the west facade of Notre Dame in Paris. In all its magnificence, Notre Dame was a fitting symbol for an influential and flourishing city, the intellectual center of the medieval world. The order and imposing presence of this building also echoed the harmony and stability which in the 12th century began to spread throughout the entire country. By the 13th century, the alliance of a powerful monarchy working hand in glove with an equally powerful clergy had helped to bring peace, prosperity, and learning to all of France. Notre Dame came to symbolize an entire age.
Every day there is new progress. Master Guillaume works himself at a furious pace, yet says he could move faster still.
Oh, Pierre, I am continually slowed by the lack of materials. If the bishop wants this cathedral finished in our lifetime...
Master Guillaume is always complaining. Does he think money simply materializes out of thin air?
With due respect, Your Grace, perhaps if you would set an example by donating some of your revenues, as did Bishop Philippe, according to the traditional formula.
That is no concern of the chapter.
I would be telling an untruth if I said that relations between the chapter and the bishop were warm and cordial. But God in his wisdom has sent Gervais for a reason, and it is not mine to question. Still, I would be telling an untruth if I said that he is not sometimes a trial.
Brother Pierre!
Becoming, Your Grace. Now that the choir is completed and the transept well underway, more pilgrims than ever journey to Beaulieu to venerate the sacred veil and appeal to its miraculous powers of healing. This also has been good for the businesses of the town and has brought more traders. When they come to deal with Merchant Thibault, he takes them first to the chapel he endowed, in which he takes understandable pride. He has spent many hours observing all the building processes and impresses his friends with his knowledge.
They make the glass from the ash of the beechwood and the washed sand, and they melt them together. While it is still molten, they add metals and sometimes old glass for coloring. The glassmaker scoops up a ball of it on the end of a pipe and blows it into a large sphere. This he moves to the end of an iron rod called a punty, on which the glass is spun rapidly over the heat. The hole, from when it is taken off the rod, grows bigger and bigger until the sphere becomes a large, flat dish. The masons who cut the stone tracery are of the highest skill. They make over this rigid rock into these delicate forms.
Good morning to you, Merchant Thibault.
And to you too, sir, and madame. That is the Countess de Bouvier. Very wealthy. She raised all the money for the rose window.
Countess, your window already enhances the entire building. 32 feet across, containing thousands of pieces of glass. But perhaps you can use your influence with the bishop. I now have tracery lying on the ground and no walls to place it in. Some of my masons have nothing to do.
In November, as in every previous year, the finished stonework is covered over with straw and dung to prevent freezing and cracking. Most of the workers return home for the winter. Our Lord said the poor would always be with us, and their need is all the greater in winter. At least they have some shelter now in the hostel established by the mendicant followers of St. Francis of Assisi, who have renounced all their worldly possessions so they can better serve the needy. Their leader is Friar Roland.
Bishop Gervais could better honor his high office by devoting greater time and energy to the poor, as we humble friars do. There is great discontent in the town, my friend. I have heard it with my own ears. They say this bishop is more apt to fleece his flock than to feed it. He has certainly not followed the dictum to divide his property into fourths. Or, if he has, the fourth he spends upon himself is far larger than the fourth he spends upon the poor.
I would be telling an untruth if I said there was no grumbling in the chapter either. Only last week I overheard the dean.
The evidence is clear. His Grace is taking much more money for his personal use than is prudent or acceptable. He lives in a far finer manner than Bishop Philippe before him. This has lowered our treasury and depleted the building fund at a crucial stage. Something must be done.
I propose we send a letter to the Pope.
The discontent must have reached his Grace's ears, because shortly thereafter he met with Master Guillaume on the matter of the stone.
And this quarry will provide you with all the stone you require.
I have seen and tested that stone. It is not all of good quality.
And I tell you it is.
Is His Grace now a stonemason as well as a bishop? Need he also tell me the quarry rests upon his own family's lands?
I wish to hear no more complaining. You will use the stone and finish quickly. A magnificent cathedral will increase our prosperity and importance as a town.
And his own prosperity and importance in the eyes of the king.
As the walls near completion, the portals are adorned with the finest sculpture I have yet seen. Master Guillaume has brought in the most skilled sculptors in the land.
I tell you, it is not a simple task keeping all the artists working in the same style, but the masters have much experience and keep a tight rein on their assistants.
A most impressive rendering, Master Guillaume.
But the real masterpiece will be the Last Judgment on the western end. Look at these drawings.
By the 8th day of June, 1245, the transept and north and south porches were complete. Instead of working, everyone attended the annual Pentecost celebration and fair. Bishop Gervais even exchanged pleasant greetings with the dean, the chapter, and Master Guillaume. It was just like old times.
The Gothic cathedral was a kind of miracle, the tangible result of 2 centuries of economic growth and prosperity, especially in the cities. By the 13th century, the cities became magnets for farmers bringing their new surpluses, for traders eager to buy and sell, and for a new international merchant class who worked from warehouses and docks along the waterways like this one here at Amiens. The medieval city provided excitement, opportunity, and freedom. As the cities grew, they competed with each other for trade and business, just as cities do today. International traders, cloth merchants, and grain dealers mingled with the faithful outside the house of God. One of the things that attracted people and encouraged them to come from far away, bringing their money with them, was the relics. In most cases, the greater the cathedral, the greater and more powerful the relics it contained. This is said to be the head of St. John the Baptist, kept among the treasures at Amiens. It was brought back to France by the Crusaders, who scoured the Holy Land for relics such as this. The relics and the miracles they could produce were considered so important in the Middle Ages that King Louis IX paid a fortune for what he believed to be Christ's authentic crown of thorns. There is more than a little dispute about whether it actually was. There were several crowns of thorns making their way through Europe at that time, all equally well authenticated. So there was a strong connection between a cathedral's drawing power and its town's wealth, a definite link between business and religion. For example, the town docks at Amiens were jointly owned by the merchants and the cathedral chapter. A town's relation to its bishop could often be strained. In 1112, the citizens here in Laon were so unhappy with their cruel and cynical Bishop Gaudry that they bought a communal charter from the king to separate themselves from him. When Gaudry got back to town, he paid the king even more to annul the charter, leading to considerable unrest. Gaudry's soldiers murdered the leader of the townsmen in cold blood. So the outraged citizens marched right into this palace, dragged the bishop out, cut his head off, and set fire to the cathedral and to the palace. The new bishop had to send the local relics on tour twice, just to pay for repairs. Financing a cathedral was hardly ever an easy task, even in the pious Middle Ages. 100 years after Laon, the people of Reims rose in bloody revolt against heavy taxation and halted construction for years. In fact, peasants all over France who could least afford it were often made to bear the heaviest financial burden. Construction taxes forced many peasants to borrow from city merchants and moneylenders, who themselves would profit handsomely again once the cathedral was completed. Ironically, the local parish churches sometimes suffered most of all, as they had to stop their own building projects and repairs and pledge large sums of money to the cathedral fund. Each cathedral had its own story, and there was a darker side to many of them, including, as we'll see, Beaulieu.
We live in an age of wonders. Every day I thank God that in our time he has revealed his science to us so we could glorify him with our cathedral. Master Guillaume himself is a wonder. Though the years hang heavy on his shoulders, his zeal is that of a child. Yesterday, he explained the roofing process to a new group of apprentices, as if for the first time.
The roof will be a series of triangular trusses which the carpenters will first assemble on the ground. After this test, they will dismantle and hoist each one to the top of the walls, where they will be reassembled. The trusses and the beams connecting them are secured with strong oak pegs.
This is not work for the timid.
Once the beams are in place, we can erect a windlass to hoist the rest of the timber and help in setting up the trusses. In the meantime, the roofers will be casting lead sheets to cover the wooden frame. They will also cast the drain pipes and gutters. Water will be directed through the lead pipes and channels down and away from the roof and out of the mouths of the gargoyles.
That should prove a chastening sight for the wicked, showing the spirits of hell awaiting the unrepentant.
With the roof and gutters in place, we will have the protection we need to begin the vaulting. The stone, mortar, and heavy materials will be raised by means of the great wheel. First, temporary wooden centerings will be mounted on the scaffolding. Then, the cut stones of the ribs, the voussoirs, will be hoisted onto the centering and mortared by the masons. Then, they can insert the keystone and lock the ribs together at the crown. These ribs become a frame for the construction of the vault itself. The vaulting is made up of webbing, layers of lightweight stone mortared together. Initially, it will be held in place by wood lagging underneath. Once the mortar has set, a 4-inch layer of concrete will be poured over the entire vault to help stabilize it. Only when it is set can the lagging and centering be removed. And we proceed to the next bay.
Too advanced in age to climb to the roof any longer, Master Guillaume supervised the operation from the ground. His assistant, Robert de Cormont, urged him to rest, but Guillaume would have none of it.
Robert! You do not go to bed when you are halfway up the mountain.
That moment will be forever engraved in my memory.
Quick! Over there!
Master Guillaume! He's dead. Lord have mercy.
All work ceased after the wall collapse. And the following day, Master Guillaume de Senlis was laid to rest in the transept. As he did for Bishop Philippe, His Grace spoke glowing words for Master Guillaume.
Would that he had been half so kind to Master Guillaume while he was yet alive.
Immediately after the service, Robert began a meticulous investigation into the cause of the collapse. He delivered his report 5 weeks later to the assembled chapter.
The stone was weak and ill-suited to the purpose, just as Master Guillaume predicted. The stone from the quarry of the bishop.
And I now have proof that Bishop Gervais has been diverting funds pledged to the cathedral building to his own personal use.
Something must be done.
There was no turning back. I was charged to write a letter to King Louis himself. Within a month, the king arrived in Beaulieu with the announced intention of touring the cathedral. But that evening, he met in private with the chapter and the dean. And I would be telling an untruth if I denied that there was much relief in the chapter and town when word came that His Majesty summoned His Grace to fulfill a vow he had taken many years before to go on a crusade. He was buried in North Africa. God rest his soul. Upon the departure of the bishop, an accounting was conducted of his holdings.
There is no money left. Construction cannot resume.
These are dark days for us. The cathedral stands uncompleted. The sheds of the masons and carpenters are empty. Neighboring towns prosper at our expense. Only a miracle can help us now. And I fear I may not see it.
This is the tombstone of Uly Berger, the architect and master builder of Saint-Nicaise, here in Reims. He's holding a model of the church, and around him are the implements he used in overseeing its construction: a measuring stick, a pair of calipers, and a square. These were just about the only tools a medieval builder like our Guillaume de Senlis would have had to supervise the building of a structure like this. What he lacked in technology, the medieval builder had to make up in ingenuity and personal skill. Not only did he have to be able to read and write, but he also needed a keen understanding of applied geometry